You didn't say.
Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Richa. I'm Richa. I'm a second-year engineer at Mansfield, and today I'm here with my friend Robin.
Possibly.
So Robin, what subject do you do?
History and politics, also second year Mansfield.
And so today we're going to give you a brief overview of the history and political science admission process at Oxford. And before we get started, Robin, can you provide us with a brief background of yourself, which school you went to, which A-levels you did?
Well, for sixth form, I went to Altrincham Grammar School for Girls, and my A-levels were, well, for AS, I did further maths, but then stopped because scary. And then I did regular maths all the way through, English Lit, History, and RS, and I also did an EPQ.
And how far back did you decide that you wanted to apply to Oxford?
Must have been 9 or 10. First time I read like the Northern Lights series, Philip Pullman ones, and sad to inform you, there aren't that many talking animals at Oxford, so you know I was upset by that.
So the first thing, of course, is the UCAS application. And we're not going to talk too much about it because it remains the same for every subject. But what about the personal statement? What tips do you have for someone writing a personal statement?
I forgot what I was going to say. One thing is, make sure to, if there are books that have like framed how you think about politics and history and a specific recent historical thing, then you should mention those books, but only do that if you've actually read the book, because I do have that horror story. A friend of mine who applied for history and politics mentioned a book in her personal statement she'd read a quarter or a third of, got to the interview, and the author was her interviewer.
Oh my god.
And she did not get in. So only mention books you've read. And also, if your EPQ is like relevant, then definitely mention that.
And did you have an open application or did you apply to Mansfield?
I applied to Mansfield, best college, but you can't anymore for history and politics because they got me and decided they could never top that. So
Fair enough.
yeah, I mean, you know how incredible I am.
I agree. So the next thing, of course, is the entrance test. And how did you prepare for the entrance test?
I did so many past papers. It helps if you have a teacher who like knows some stuff about the application process, who can look over the past papers, but just doing them is the most helpful part of the process because you need to get used to how the questions are different from the questions on like A-level examination papers. There's a lot more interpreting sources you've never seen before. You do have to bring in some of your A-level knowledge, but only for one essay. The rest is basically testing your analytical skills. It's a really fun test.
What exactly is the test? Is it the same as history?
Yeah, the HAP test.
What's the layout like?
Oh god, this was years ago. There's, I think, 4 questions, but you don't do, like there's one you don't do because that's just for history and economics people or something. It says on the front. And 2 of the questions are source-based, just analytical stuff. And one of the questions is like an essay bringing in outside knowledge. So basically what you studied at A-level, and that one is hard and bad and I didn't like it. But if you'll notice, still sitting here. So, the most important stuff is the sources and just learning to analyse them. So the main thing for that really is getting yourself used to it in past papers because of the differences with how you're supposed to approach it. Like you have to approach the sources blind, like you know basically nothing about the period. It's really fun.
Were you that excited when you came out of the test?
Yes, I was less excited when the test started because our invigilators were two old ladies who were very bad at invigilating, and it started 45 minutes late.
Oh my god.
But then I got into my groove doing the exam, and so relaxing.
I love how you can say that.
With my 27 pens piled up on the side of the desk,
Well, you obviously did great to make it to the next process of the interview. How did you prepare for the interview?
I did get a teacher at a different school to give me a practice interview. A teacher I didn't know, so it more modelled the way the actual interview goes with a stranger who you're scared of. But what was most important was watching people's vlogs about about how to prepare for interviews. I do recommend watching vlogs about lots of things. Watch lots of vlogs.
Aww. And how did the actual interview go?
So for history and politics, there are two interviews, one for history, one for politics. The history interview, you have to send an essay in advance, one you've done for class, and they'll normally open the interview with a few questions about that, about your thought process, so it's important to have it be a recent one, which you thought about and remember writing. The first question was weird, because it was like, why did you write an essay with this title? And the answer was, oh, my teacher sent me that essay in class, because he told us to submit what we'd done for class. But other than that really weird and awkward bit, the interview is really fun. They also bring out a source, normally a painting, like a historical painting. Mine was this horrific one of a Christian missionary, and he was framed with this lovely white tent behind him, and he's all glowing, and there's all these adoring natives staring at him lovingly, and it's like, so when do you think this was from, and what's it about? And it's like, oh, okay. So it's like a historically significant sort of source material, but normally not historically significant painting in itself, because then you might have seen it before. And then there's the politics interview, which is more logic puzzly than actual what you might think of as political. It's testing how you can think for political philosophy type questions. There were a lot of questions about avalanches. I think the real topic of those questions was responsibility and where it lies in circumstances. It wasn't actually about avalanches, I have since discovered. There's also a question about riots. It's amazing. The politics one was easier, I think, when you're actually in there than the history one, but a lot harder to prepare for because of how logic puzzly and self-contained it was. It was fun.
And how did you feel coming out of your interviews?
The history one I felt pretty good coming out of. The politics one, a bit less so, because it was all vague and about avalanches. What I will say about the history one, though, is that there were two interviewers in there, and one was mostly silent, but when she did ask a question, it was weirdly antagonistic. The other one would be like, oh, so why do you think this? Could you explore that line of thought a bit more? And occasionally the other one would go, why do you think that? Why do you think that? And that is exactly how she spoke.
Did she have a gun by any chance?
She definitely had a gun. A big machine gun pointed directly at me.
And so did you stay here for how long did you stay back?
About 3 nights.
And what was the social atmosphere at that time?
Yeah, it was really fun. People would mostly hang out in the JCR when they weren't at interviews, and there was, even when there wasn't stuff going on in the JCR, people were friendly, at the ping pong table. We made up new rules for ping pong, so that's fun. But then normally in the evenings there was something being run by college. There was a pub quiz. I still remember certain specific details from who got questions wrong, because I'm competitive. And there was also a night when the college helpers just brought loads of ice cream, and that is when we made the new rules for ping pong because of the sugar hyperactivity.
Okay, so I guess that's all for today. Thank you so much, Robin, for imparting your wisdom. And to whoever's watching this, good luck with your applications. We hope to see you here next year. Please do like, share, and subscribe. See ya.
Bye.